this video, we're going to cover behavioral questions. So just a general landscape of what behavioral questions are, why recruiters ask these questions, and how you might go about answering them. So behavioral questions are the ones that are in the format, tell me about a time. Tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker. Tell me about a time that you had to make a difficult decision. Tell me about a time you served on a dysfunctional team. Tell me about a time you had to meet a tight deadline and you didn't have enough time. So these are examples of behavioral questions. And by the way, we have separate individual videos on each of these questions. So why do recruiters ask behavioral questions? Research has indicated that the best predicator of future behavior is past behavior, right? So again, you know, if you have a hiring manager in front of you and they want to get an idea of who you are and how you might behave in their team, in that job with them, then a very good way for them to get some intel on you is to ask you questions of how you've behaved previously in similar situations at work, okay? So I want to give you 3 rules in terms of answering these questions. The first one is, tell me about a time. The way that's set up is an invitation to tell a story, right? You'll agree that it's about telling a story, taking the audience through a narrative. And so tell a story, okay? Make it fun and interesting and compelling for the person listening, and also make sure that you pick an example that's effective in terms of demonstrating the skill set and the characteristics that you want to demonstrate, okay? So your example should have both of those components, fun and interesting, but also effective in terms of demonstrating your capacities. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, use the SAR formula, situation, action, result, okay? So with this, you want to set the situation up as quickly as possible. 20-30 seconds tops. Don't get wrapped up in the detail of the story. It's really not about the specifics. It's much more about the actions that you took. So that's where you should spend a bulk of your answer, in the A of situation, action, result. And what I would recommend is, you know, as always, the rule of 3. So pick 3 actions, 3 clear actions that you took in that specific situation, okay? Spend most of your time there, and then you want to wrap up another 20-30 seconds with the result. So the result is always the situation got resolved, the conflict was resolved, the deadline or the goal was met. So you want to finish on the positive result that occurred as a result of the actions that you took. Finally, rule number 3, nothing personal, okay? So when you're thinking of stories to pick, examples to use, you can certainly use examples that are non-work related. Now, obviously, if they specify and say, give me an example from work, then you have to do that. If they don't, then feel free to use examples from school, use examples from a volunteer activity in your community. In fact, it's a good idea to mix things up a little bit and use some of those examples as well, and not just stick to work-related examples. But having said that, don't pick things that are personal. So what do I mean by that? I think the best way to demonstrate this is to use an example. And interestingly enough, this is from another interview prep job site. And these guys are using this as an example that they recommend. So I think this is precisely what you should not do. So let me read this out, and then I'll tell you why it's not a good idea. So this person is using an example from a previous job, and they're saying, a senior member of the team seemed to take an instant dislike to me from the start. And one day she was particularly unpleasant to me in front of several colleagues. Later on, I was talking to one of these colleagues who was, I thought, attempting to console me. Angry and hurt, I foolishly vented my feelings and told her about what I thought about the lady in question. I was naturally shocked to find out that she went on to tell everyone that about what I had said, and this didn't help my relationship with this team member and just made the situation worse. And then she goes on to say that she ultimately talked to this lady in question and resolved matters. So to me, this is exactly what you should not use as an example, because recruiters, hiring managers, your future employers, the one thing they don't want is people who are difficult to work with, who are sensitive, who get their feelings hurt, who pick up weird vibes and get into all kinds of shenanigans with colleagues and think that people don't like them and spend a lot of time and energy wasting on those kinds of issues. And they're thinking about these things, they're venting to other people about these things, then they spend a lot of time trying to sort it out. And none of this is about business. None of this is about work-related stuff. It takes away from business objectives and business goals, right? So even if this person went on to resolve the conflict, if I was managing that company, if this was my business, I wouldn't want anybody wasting time in these things, right? So this is what I mean about, steer clear of things that have to do with personality conflicts and not getting along with people. You want to come across as somebody, with all these behavioral questions, the one underlying thematic thing here, if there is one, is you want to come across as someone who's focused on the goals of the business, who is professional at work, and if there are difficult situations and conflicts to be had, it's over work, it's over the content of the work that you're doing, as opposed to people, personality stuff. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful in terms of answering behavioral questions. Thank you for listening, and catch you soon.